Are you struggling to stay consistent with publishing your podcast? Do everyday distractions get in the way? One trick that I'd like you to try out is implementing a podcasting workflow. Although this may sound complicated, a workflow in its simplicity is the series of actions you take from start to finish. Podcasting takes more than just hitting record and hoping for the best. Ever found yourself in a tangle because you skipped a step or two? You're not alone. Having a workflow in place can help prevent this from happening. It can also streamline the process and make it more efficient for you. A workflow makes managing your workload easier because you're no longer guessing what to do when you sit down at your desk every single day. Here is how I know. As a fellow podcaster, I'm right there with you, juggling the ins and outs of an online business and a family. And let's be real, the winging it approach to content, it's a one-way ticket to burnout. I've been there and done that. Trust me, it's awful. It took me almost a year to bounce back and start creating content for my business. I can tell you from experience, it did not do me any favors when it came to the growth of my business. I know, right? Let's talk about saving your sanity and your schedule, friend, with something I wish I had started from the very beginning: a streamlined podcasting workflow in a project management software like Asana, Trello, or MeisterTask. It's like having a map to guide you from point A to point Z. Without it, you'll likely take the long way around. A workflow for your podcast ensures that you never miss a turn or an episode again. Ready to get your podcast process polished? Please say yes. With that yes, you're now set to polish your podcast process with an effective workflow. But there's more to it than just efficiency. It's about safeguarding your most valuable asset: your creative spark, your time, and your energy. How do you do that? By avoiding the content burnout. Avoiding burnout in your content creation, let's face it, the grind of content creation can be relentless. It's never-ending cycle. But it is essential if you want the freedom that goes along with running an online business. Your content is what signals to the right people: here I am. I'm ready to assist you. I'm ready to help you solve your problems. This is your invitation to the people you help, why you want to help them, and how you actually help them. Here's the bottom line: if you're burnt out from creating core content for your business, it will have a ripple effect on your lead generation. That's why I am so passionate about workflows, because this was the thing that changed it for me. Your business can run more effectively by creating repeatable, organized core content that can get easily created. Not having to make decisions every day in your business about what to do next with your content helps you to avoid burnout from content creation. One simple step is to create a podcasting flow. And what is a podcast workflow? It's simple. A podcast workflow, as I mentioned before, is just the series of steps that you take to get an episode from idea to publication. This includes your planning, recording, editing, production, and promotion. Having a defined workflow reduces mistakes, all that backtracking, and of course, ultimately, the frustration that comes from all of those things. It also frees up time for all the other important tasks by increasing your efficiency. That way, it lets you focus on the things that you need to be doing in your business to increase your revenue. So here are the main benefits to creating a podcast workflow if I didn't have you convinced yet. It helps you to stay organized from episode ideation to promotion. It saves you time by avoiding those last minute scrambles. It reduces mistakes that require even more rework. You work more effectively by following a process, and it frees up your time for high value tasks like promotion. What are the actual steps in your podcast creation process. You might not have them mapped out in a project management tool yet, but I bet you're following some sort of process, even if it's not written down. And if you're finding gaps or having to double back, that's a telltale sign that it's time to get it down on paper, or better yet, into a digital workflow. But hey, if you're good on paper, write it down one time, and all you have to do is photocopy it time and time again. David Allen said it best: your mind is for having ideas, not for holding them. So why not take a moment right now? Let's lay out the steps, clear and simple, so that you can start shaping your podcast workflow. Here are the 5 steps that I feel are necessary for streamlining your podcast workflow. The first one is to plan ahead with your content calendar. Planning is key to an effective podcast workflow. Decide on topics and potential guests, if that's what you do, at least a few weeks, or ideally at least a month in advance. When selecting your episodes, you want to ensure they align with your promotional or launch calendar. If you do not have an idea bank to pull episode topics from, not a big deal. Just schedule some time when you're in your most creative frame of mind to brainstorm upcoming topics. Once you have an exhausted list of ideas, all you need to do is create a content calendar that maps out all the episodes for the next 3 months. Then you just need to create a bare bones outline for each episode's key points and discussion topics while it's fresh in your mind. Well, you don't have to, although I do recommend it, because I don't know about you, but if I'm only writing down an episode idea without a bit of context when it comes time to record it, I'll struggle to come up with the talking points, because I'll forget what was the thing that I was like, oh yeah, and then I want to talk about this and this and this. When I have a few points from when that idea popped in my head, this will help keep my squirrels in line during the recording of the podcast episode. Planning ahead ensures you always have upcoming episodes lined up and ready to record. No more last minute scrambles to put a show together. When you have a plan, it is simpler to be consistent with your podcasting. Number 2 is to schedule interviews seamlessly. And if you're a solo show, you can go ahead and skip number 2. But booking and coordinating with guests does take time and effort, but make it easier on yourself with a few key tools. Use a scheduling tool like Calendly to share your availability. This allows your guests to be able to pick a time that works with their schedule. Another option, if you're on a budget, is TinyCal. It's a simple calendar with a pay once and get lifetime access. And for only $27, that's a pretty sweet deal. I'll go ahead and put the link to that software in the show notes. Once you have set your date, set a confirmation with the must-know information. This includes your meeting links, the topics to discuss, any questions that you'll ask. This allows your guests to prepare and deliver a better interview. Are you able to block schedule interviews? This is a game changer with your consistency. By block booking multiple guests on one day, this is more effective than spacing out your recordings. Smooth interview scheduling ensures effective communication without all that back and forth emails and calls. Oh, and just one more thing that I want to mention, make sure you tell your guest if they need to be camera ready. Because if you intend to upload the interview to YouTube, you want to make sure you inform your guests beforehand so they don't show up in their pajamas and a messy bun. Number 3 is record and edit effectively. So it does take work to record those episodes with clear audio and minimal mistakes, but you can develop an efficient process. Alert yourself quickly by adding editing signals. So an editing signal may be you clap your hands. My go-to editing signal is a long pause. It allows me to gather my thoughts and try again. Also, my content VA is on the lookout for these pauses. This is a signal to her that editing is needed in this area. More than likely gonna be beforehand, obviously, because I had a long pause. Use an outline during the episode to keep you on track and ensure that you hit all your points. Remember, You don't need to be following any squirrels during your podcast episode. Block record all your solo episodes on one day when possible, because this will allow you to reuse the setup and be in record mode for an extended period. Using editing software like Descript, which is my favorite and the one that we use in my business, to polish up the audio by removing those filler words and mistakes. Its transcript feature also makes it super easy to locate and edit those specific sections. Remember when I talked about my long pauses? It's so easy for her to be able to find those in there. Editing. You can also edit efficiently by pre-recording your intros, your outros, and maybe any promotions that you do on each one of your podcasts. You know, those interrupt for a commercial break type of things during your podcast. These can be simply added in for each episode. When you're efficiently recording and editing, that removes the need for extensive post-production, and your episodes will sound polished and professional. Optimizing your production. So the final production process is when your episode truly comes together. Don't skip optimizing this step. Add in an intro and your outro audio to brand your episodes and tease upcoming shows. And then you can develop templates that make this fast and consistent. Include episode details like the title, the description, the guest information, and more in your meta description. And again, in Descript, when you export that out, they have an area for you to put in that meta description. This helps listeners to find your show. And you're going to write compelling show notes that includes timestamps, quotes, links, and resources mentioned if that's your thing. These notes become great material also for your social media. Add relevant images to the post of the episode that makes it visually engaging, because now you can change that cover art for each one of your podcasts. Canva has templates for podcast graphics, quotes, and so much more to make it easy for you. Optimizing production makes your podcast shine. Don't leave this as an afterthought. Promoting your new episode, because if you don't tell people it's out there, how else are they going to know? You put in the work to create that excellent episode. Make sure it finds its audience. Share new episodes on social media channels that you hang out on the most. Use one piece of content and break it up into multiple posts. Then add that into your caption bank to allow you to pull content in the future to promote an older episode. Ensure that you post multiple times as well on your stories so people know. Send an email blast to your list with each new episode announcement. Include a link to the episode along with a short description. And just so you know, I actually only send it to my website so that they can go to my blog and then to the podcast. Call it a long workaround, but I do want to see if the traffic goes to my website too. Reach out personally to influencers and others in your industry who would be interested in actually that topic. Ask them to check out your episode if you know it would be very beneficial for it. Repurpose content from the episode into a blog post or a video to maximize its impact. Promote your podcast widely helps attract new listeners. Don't keep it a secret, friend. Shout it. Let them know. The right workflow keeps your podcast production on track without wasting effort or stressing you out. Now you can consistently create excellent shows while growing your audience. Once you have your main steps, it's just time to enter it into your project management software by creating your podcasting workflow. Let's walk through building your podcast workflow in a project management system. If you've not selected a project management system yet, check out episode 29. What is the best project management software? Or the link to the blog post will be down below in the show notes. First, you need to create a new project called Podcast Workflow. You're going to make columns or sections, and under those columns or sections, here's some ideas for titles that you can put. Ideas, planning, booking, recording, editing, production, and promotion. These represent the key stages of a podcast. Here are the columns or section titles that I use in my project management system. and that's the podcast process. So the first column is actually my process. So if I bring on a new team member, anything, all the recordings and how to do a podcast editing for me, how I want it done, is actually in that first column under the podcast process. So they can see everything right there. Ideas, planned, in progress, publish, promotion, metrics, and done. Build one task template that can be duplicated. So name it something like template, and then whatever it is, the title is that you do for your cards for those individual episodes. So let's say it's template, and then you have episode 000 or whatever your episode number is, and the topic that's going to be talked about in that episode. Create an action item for each task in your podcasting workflow and include those promotional tasks like social media and email. You'll duplicate the template each time you start a new podcast. So you see, that's why you want to create one template so that you can go back, and as you work, you change up your workflow. You just need to go into that template and make the changes so that you can duplicate from that one place. You're going to adjust your dates and your details then as needed on that actual project card. You'll be able to mark tasks as done as you complete each stage of the production. You'll be able to review the board to see any upcoming episodes and deadlines so that you never miss a thing. This workflow will make your podcast creation process smoother, organized, and efficient. You'll gain time to focus on reaching more listeners, and who doesn't want to expand their reach? Am I right? If you'd like my template for a podcasting workflow and help selecting your project management software, I encourage you to book a mini session. It's at the lowest price that it will be, and it's just $97. Well, friends, it's time to wrap up this podcast episode. Creating a consistent, high-quality podcast does take work, but you don't have to do it in a disorganized, chaotic way. Well, you can if you want to, but I encourage you not to. Implementing a streamlined podcast workflow using a project management software is a game changer. You'll stop wasting time on unnecessary tasks and backtracking for mistakes, or my problem following any squirrels that I may come across when I'm in my pit. With a trusted system in place, you can work confidently through each episode. You'll no longer dread the recording and editing process or wonder what steps you're forgetting this time. Production of your podcast will become simple, dare I even say enjoyable. You'll gain new satisfaction from watching your workflow progress from idea to publication. And more importantly, a solid workflow prevents content burnout. It protects your energy and inspiration from depletion. You can now focus on reaching more listeners and growing your podcast while spending less time stressed and overwhelmed. But don't wait. Map these podcast production steps today. Get your workflow set up in Asana, Trello, or the project management platform of your choice. The one that works best for your brain is the one you should use. But don't jump around if you have one. Don't waste all the time trying to find something else. Then watch with delight as your podcast process becomes smoother than ever before. You've got this, friend. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you, and I hope you have a wonderful week. Yay! Thank you so much for listening. I hope that you found this episode valuable and learned some actionable tips that you can implement in your business so that you can feel accomplished and less stressed. If you enjoyed this show, please take a quick minute to share this with your business bestie, subscribe, and leave a review. It helps me reach more business owners just like you. And if you have any questions or topics you'd like me to cover in future episodes, please reach out to me on my website. I've created a form just for you. Remember, with the right system and mindset, you can achieve the success your heart desires. Thank you for tuning in. I look forward to chatting with you next time. I appreciate you, and I hope you have a wonderful week. And don't forget, let's grow, friends.